Hey, it's August 29th, I want to say, something like that. It's a Saturday night, and we're going to talk about, before you go and buy a revolver, what you should probably know. They're probably one of the more confusing guns, even though they are probably one of the most simplest and most reliable guns there is out there. We'll talk about some of the terminology, the frame types, the ammo that's used in it, and some of the best brands to go and look at. So on my right here, I have the revolvers that I use basically for fun, collector stuff. And on the left here is revolvers that I use probably for home defense or concealed carry. Now, I guess we'll talk about the ammo types or the loading type. Revolvers are referred to as either wheel guns, cylinder guns, or of course revolvers. What makes it different from something like a Glock or like a 1911? A Glock and a 1911 are auto loaders, which means that every time you fire a round, another round comes out of the magazines, gets placed into the barrel, and is, next time you pull the trigger, it fires that round. With a revolver, every time you fire a round, the cylinder turns, and then you can fire again. And then that's where we start talking about single and double action. So what does single and double action mean? It actually means how your finger is going to pull the trigger and how many actions that takes. And so it is hot out here. It's like so over 100, even though it's at night. But hey, I don't want to do this inside. I kind of like the outdoors. Anyway, so just to show you, we always want to make sure that all the cylinders are empty. So real quick, we'll empty all the cylinders, and then I'll just go over real quick the difference between a single action and a double action, right? So I'll take all these cylinders out, and you can see they're all empty. We'll start with this. This is an Old West gun. It's modeled after the Colt. I forget what it was, but it's actually a Ruger. Now, my Spanish is horrible. Vaquero. I'm just going to call it Vaquero. So what's the difference between a single action and a double action? Just making sure it's all clear. And I have dummy rounds in here because you always, these kinds of guns, you want to have some kind of dummy round in it so that you're not just shooting it with nothing in there. So a single action, right? What does the trigger do? I just pull it. So all it does is it just drops the hammer. So it does one single action. It drops the hammer. Okay, so that's a single action. A double action is when I pull the trigger, it pulls the hammer back. That's one action. And then it drops the hammer. That's two actions. Pulls the hammer back, drops the hammer. Two actions. So that's a double action. Now I can set the hammer back and pull the trigger and put it into single action, one action, but this is a double action gun. Also revolvers, this is a double action, but it does not have single action capabilities. Everything's inside of the what are we doing here? Everything is inside of the gun itself. Okay, so terminology. Autoloader, something like a 1911, a Glock, those types of guns. And a double action is, there's two actions that the trigger does. Pulls the hammer back, releases the hammer. Single action is the only thing the trigger does is it releases it. That was with the Alex Baldwin thing, is that's why they're saying you couldn't have, if you pull the trigger on a single action, nothing's going to happen. This is another single action. Nothing happens. I have to pull the trigger back and then, or the hammer back and then pull the trigger for there to be something. I do that all day and nothing happens. Anyway, that's the difference between a single action and a double action. So let's talk about the pistols that I have here, the revolvers. This is a Smith & Wesson Model 10. This is the old, I remember this as a kid. Actually, when I was a New York City Police Auxiliary, this is the kind of guns they were just transitioning to. I think it's one of the Glock models, I forget, but that was 1993, and they were still walking around with these Model 10s, the Smith & Wesson Model 10s. This is a Smith & Wesson 686, all chromed. And we'll talk about, you know, when you're buying a gun, any gun, we'll talk about chrome versus blue, right? So that's the 686. This is the, I believe this is the, I don't have my glasses on, but the Ruger, let's see if I can, yeah, there you go. The Ruger GP100. This is my first revolver, and honestly, it's probably one of my favorite ones to shoot. It's just really smooth. I just really like the way the Ruger makes everything on this. So that's the GP100. It's actually really affordable too. And then this is the, I believe they call this the Bodyguard, but this is the little Smith & Wesson Bodyguard. And so this is 38 special. This is 357 or 38 special. This is also 357 38 special. And this is 38 special or 38 plus P. I believe this is a 38 plus P as well. And we'll talk about that in a minute. This is, like I said, an old cowboy gun, modeled after the old Colts. This is a 45 long Colt, the original cartridge for that as well. Here is a Smith & Wesson Model 29. This is the make and model and caliber 44 Magnum that was in the Dirty Harry movies. This is an old Colt Army 1872 model. Now this was a remanufactured working model of that, of the Colt Army 1872. This is made by Taylor & Company. They make great replicas, really cool gun to have. Great little collection gun. And then this is a Performance Center. As you can see, it's empty. A Performance Center Smith 686. But it's a Performance Center. It's very smooth. Just barely anything on the trigger to shoot. It's a really smooth gun to shoot. I keep it just for, it's just a really nice revolver. All right, so talk about some of the ammo for revolvers. 357 is going to be your strongest round. 38 plus P is going to be a little weaker from a 357, and then a 38 special is going to be your weakest round in that category. A 357 Magnum, such as this Ruger GP100, this will take 38 P plus, and also 357 Magnum, right? So if you want to be able to load more rounds, you know, real heavy ones or powerful ones like 357, you get a 357 capable one, and in those you can shoot the plus P 38 and then the 38 special. If you get something like this, this is just 38 special. This will not fit a 357. So think of it like 38 special, 38 plus P will fit in a 357, but a 357 will not fit into a 38 special. So it's an important thing to know. All right, now you'll see reference to frames. Typically, your J frames are going to be your smaller carry guns, like this 686 from Smith & Wesson with the 3-inch barrel, and also this Bodyguard from Smith & Wesson. Those are J frames. Next up, you'll have your Ks. I believe these are K frames. Yeah, K frames, kind of like your mid-sized guns, like this 686. I believe that's a 4-inch barrel, and the GP100. And I believe this is considered either an L or an N frame. This is the 44 mag, which is the really big frames. This is the ones that they make the really bigger revolvers for. So it goes J small, K medium, L and N the big ones. Okay, so ammo, talked about the frames, the trigger types, single shot versus double action, right? Now, there's also a thing to be aware of. If you do want to buy an old gun like this, 1872 Army model, the hammer here directly hits the bullet. It's got a little pin, you might not be able to see it, but a little pin here. When you fire it, that little pin actually hits the back of the bullet, the primer, and fires around. So it's actually, when you carry, if you carry these, you actually have to have one chamber that's empty, because if this is going to sit in your pocket and this is going to sit on it, this has to sit on the empty chamber, because if it sat on the actual bullet, that could be dangerous. So this hits directly onto the bullet. Now the old Model 10s used to be like that. This is this one's probably from like the 70s, and this will not directly hit the bullet. What this has in here is a little like a little slide, a little piece of metal that protects the bullet from anything accidental. So if you hit this, it's not going to hit the bullet. When you pull it back, the piece of metal goes down, exposing the primer, and then when you fire, it actually hits a piece of metal that then hits the bullet. So it's just a little safety thing. Even the newer Ruger Vaquero has that thing. You see, there's no little pointy thing. It actually hits that little slide in there. All right, so the calibers that we have, this is the 38, I'm sorry, this is 357, which will also take 38. This is a 38 only, not a P+, it's a 38 only. The thing is that you have a lot of power in that barrel when you have more powerful rounds, because this is an older gun. It's not like a hammer forged where it's super hard, so it can't take those higher pressures. This is a 44 Magnum. If I open this up, and let's open this one up. I don't know if you'll be able to tell, but the cylinders are a lot bigger on this 44 Magnum. As you see, even though I know they're unloaded, I still don't point the guns at myself. I try not to, at least. Anyway, let's see, what other questions would somebody have buying a revolver? So, you know, single action versus double action, the different kinds of rounds, 38, 357, 44, old collectible guns versus more practical ones that you might carry. Oh, yes, stainless steel versus blued. Okay, so this 686 is stainless steel. Really nice look. I love the stainless steel. This is stainless steel. This is actually a polished stainless steel. And this is also stainless steel, this other 686 performance model. Okay, the black guns are blued. So this is blued, blued, and blued, right? This one is, it's not blued, but I forget the name of it. It's a hammered steel or something like that. It's an outlier. Anyway, so why would you get one over the other? Okay. Out here in Arizona, except for today apparently, it's hardly ever humid. It's not cloudy. We don't live near an ocean. The lakes are way up in the mountains. We don't get salt. There's no salt in the air. So we can have pretty much these blued guns and never ever worry about rust or you know, the metal having any kind of issues out here in Arizona, because like I said, we don't live near an ocean or anything like that. If you did live in somewhere like Louisiana or near an ocean and you had that, and I grew up on the Jersey Shore, so I know what it's like to have that humidity and the air just full of that salty, misty stuff. You're going to want to get a stainless steel weapon, right? A stainless steel gun, because these will be resistant to rust. They'll last a lot longer. You don't have to put as much care into it, and you can keep these in your safe and not worry about them rusting out if you do live in that kind of a climate. Now, if you do have one of these blue guns, you're gonna have to keep it oiled. You're gonna have to throw one of those packets in there, those moisture absorbing packets, and really take care of it. Now, what would I get? Honestly, oh yeah, one last thing. What is the major advantage that a revolver has over an autoloader like a 1911 or a Glock? And they're great for up close and personal. Now, one of my videos I have posted shows me taking a autoloader and pushing it up against the couch and trying to shoot it, and I can't, right? because what it does is when you push it, it puts it out of battery because it'll slide. So if you're, if you're wrestling with somebody and they got a weapon and you feel you got to take it up a level, and you take your auto loader out, your 1911, your Glock, your SIG, whatever, and you stick it up into that person, you're not going to be able to shoot it. It's going to go out of battery. So that's where a revolver is really good. It's good for up close and personal because it doesn't have that thing where it's it can go out of battery. You can still fire that pistol into that person or whatever it is that you're wrestling with. We'll say a bear. Say a bear's wrestling you. You can get it right up into that bear. All right, so that's the advantage over a pistol. I call it my ATM gun because usually if someone's going to come to you at an ATM, you'll probably get into a wrestling match. Smart thing is just give them the money. If it's not that, well, if it's any amount, if they have a gun, it's better just give them the money. If they have a knife or something, that might be a whole different story. You make that decision. I don't want to pay for attorneys and possibly sit in jail trying to fight something where I'm innocent. So I probably would just give them the money. But anyway, you do what you do. Anyway, the best carry guns, in my opinion, this little bodyguard, I believe it's like the Shield or the Bodyguard or something from Smith & Wesson. I put the 38 plus P, more than a capable round. Really small, because out here in the summer you don't wear a lot of clothes all the time. And my other carry revolver is either going to be this GP100 because it's just such a reliable, strong, good gun. It's hard to conceal, just like the 686 is pretty hard to conceal. Now somebody might be asking, well, why don't you carry the 686 Performance Center one, this little snub nose? And the reason why I don't, it's just too nice of a gun. It's just way too nice of a gun. So say I did have to use my $400 gun as opposed to my $1,300 gun, and the police had to take it and confiscate it during their investigation, I'd much rather them take my little Smith & Wesson there. Oh, and one last point, and then we'll wrap this up. I'm probably gonna make some enemies. One of my good friends is well, you'll find out why. The best by quality revolvers. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I have this joke about like everybody knows Toyotas are the best cars and you should save your money for a Toyota, but some people go and buy a Kia and they say, well, Korean, it's Asian, it's close enough. Stupid, right? That's what Taurus owners kind of are. It's not a great quality gun. You should have one of the three best revolver people. The most dependable ones to get is Ruger, Smith & Wesson, or Colt. And I don't really have a Colt, but this is the closest thing I got to a Colt, right? So Colt, Ruger, Smith & Wesson. Listen, if you ain't got the budget and you want to buy a Taurus, I'm not going to say anything. But if you could wait to buy a better quality, realistically, Taurus is not the best quality gun. It's fine. It's a good gun. I'm sure we'll shoot. We'll last through a couple rounds, but it's not the best quality. I would say go for the best quality, because when it comes to defending yourself, you don't want something. And what does go wrong with these revolvers is two things. As you can see, I got to get this one fixed a little bit because it's not smooth in there. I'll have to take it apart, look at the springs or whatever it is. But that's one of the things. I shoot this a lot, so the parts can wear inside. The other thing too is the timing. We'll use a 44. So as you pull back, the barrel turns. And if you shoot a lot and it's not the best quality kind of revolver, the timing could actually go off where it's not lined up to the front here with the primer. And then what I understand, I never owned a Taurus. What I understand is that they do have that kind of timing problem with some of those. And like I said, if I'm going to carry something that's going to possibly be used to defend my life, I want it to be very dependable. So my suggestion is go for a Ruger, Smith & Wesson, or a Colt. And anyway, all right, so hopefully that answered just about any question you would have before buying a revolver. And if there's anything you feel like I got wrong, you want to add anything, make some corrections, critique the way I present this, go down in the comments and throw something in there. Let me know what you're thinking. I'm open to critique. I want to get better at this. So just let me know. If you don't want to listen to, gun advice from a white fat guy, go ahead and tell me that. I'll see what I can do about it. All right? Well, have a good one.